Good evening. We have Dr. Deena Brown, founder of the Leadershift movement from California with us. Let's welcome her. Hello,
Hello.
Deena. How are you?
Hello. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for accepting to be with us for the next 60 minutes. This Expert Talks with Hari was the initiative started during the lockdown period. The idea behind this, the motive behind this is to create positive vibes, positive waves on a global level. So we have guests from different parts of the world, from anywhere from Australia to Norway to UK to US. And I'm really happy that you have accepted to be with us. This has three segments. This show has three segments. The first segment is about who is Dr. Deena? Where was she born? Where did she do her schooling? Where did she do her college? And her career path all the way till today. And mainly we focus on also the areas where you've learned lessons in your path. The second segment is about our theme, collaborative leadership. What is leadership? Then we come into collaborative leadership and why it is of much importance than any time else, especially now, where collaboration is the way to go. The third segment is the surprise segment, which I'll explain you when we get there. Now we'll start with you, Dr. Deena. Who is Dr. Deena? We'll start from there.
Hi, I am a strategist that helps women who want more. However, my journey to get here has been quite interesting. I was born in Los Angeles, California. I happened to have the glorious advantage to go to college in San Diego. I have a bachelor's degree in economics. I then made a quick shift to the East Coast, and I have a master's degree from Old Dominion in education because I decided that it wasn't enough to just, take over the world. I wanted to educate the minds that were going to be leading the world. And I completed my PhD in educational leadership and research at the University of Southern Mississippi. So when you look at my educational path, I started on the West Coast, jumped over to the East Coast, and then wrapped it up actually in the South. And from that particular point, it's been, continuous learning experiences.
Okay. Are there any lessons learned in this journey, Dr. Deena?
Oh my goodness, my life is full of lessons. I am a walking lesson, hence the concept of leadership, and realizing that there's sometimes that we want to pivot and other times that we actually have to shift. But one of the most profound lessons I actually learned from my mother. And my mom has always told us that, number one, you hold the power. You hold the power to your future, your destiny, and all things that you hold dear. But because you hold the power, you have to be cognizant on whether or not you give it away. And any time you say, someone made me do something, my mom used to tell us that now you've just given away your power. But what I learned on my journey, again, was that I also have the power to take it back. And so for me, I realized that everything is a choice. I learned from, again, being a business and finance. I was an international and business major with actually a minor study in Southeast Asia. I wanted to do corporate law. And I realized that, I was going to be in school for like eons of years, all my friends were graduating and here I was a double major in finance and international business. And what I did was I realized since I knew I was going to grad school that I actually switched to economics and I graduated the next December as opposed to like 5 years down the line.
Okay. Any pleasant memories from your school days which you would like to share?
Yes, and this is one of the things from going to school is that when I went to Virginia, I planned on going to Old Dominion to get they had a special program with an MBA and a JD. And when I went there, I realized that the work that I was doing, organizational leadership and development, etc., it did not speak to my heart. It didn't speak to my soul. And when I got to Virginia and Old Dominion, I switched majors and I actually got a master's degree in education because I realized that I didn't just I wanted to touch the hearts and the minds of those that were going to be leading our future. And to do that, I had to be in it. And so that's what I learned about myself, that going to school and when we're trying to figure out our career path is that it really should align to what we truly want to do, not just how much money we want to make.
Okay. And when it comes to any favorite professors or any guide who helped you to identify your potential or who encouraged you, motivated you, anybody you can mention in this at this point of time?
My one person that sticks out, and even to this day, even though she retired, was the chair of my dissertation committee, Dr. Thelma Roberson. And she was a tough cookie. She was tough. But she showed tough love because she inspired me to give more, to give the very best of me, as opposed to settling for what I could do. And now things that weren't really difficult for me, and I didn't have a hard time learning. It was something I loved to do. And yet she challenged me to push past what I will call my version of mediocrity. It might be excellence to some, but for me, it didn't require me to do more. It just required me to show up. And so she challenged me to actually do more and to step into excellency as opposed to just being satisfied with my personal version of mediocrity.
Okay. Now we move on to the next segment, which is collaborative leadership. We'll start first with what is leadership according to you. Then we'll go to the collaborative. So what is leadership?
Well, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Having the wherewithal and the power to influence first yourself before you can truly impact others.
Okay. And now, why are you? I saw the name of the company. The organization is the Leadershift movement. So explain why this name and what is it? How are you trying to, or how are you impacting the community? How are you impacting the on a global level as well? So can you explain a little bit on that?
I would love to. And actually, it's the Lead Her Shift movement. It's shifting the way we as women think about ourselves and how we learn, experience, apply, and develop, how we lead. And my focus is on women because number one, I'm a woman. And so I can speak from an authentic place. However, what I speak to are universal truths. And the fact that women tend to lead from a unique space doesn't make them less than, it actually makes them greater than. However, when we are leading, we often spend time on the outside supporting and servicing others, but on the inside, our own directional is sometimes skewed a little bit. And what we think about ourselves actually shapes how we lead, how we show up, what we say yes to, what we lend support to. And so the Lead Her Shift movement is really about mindset mastery, really looking the way that you think, because what you speak to yourself, what you say to yourself is going to impact how you grow yourself. And then it's going to also impact how you connect, relate, empower, inspire, and build with others, because it actually starts with you being the very first person that you have to influence. And what I created was what I call the C3 blueprint. And at the core foundation of that is clarity, confidence, and consistency. And so particularly as women, because there's so many different ideologies about who we should be, and there's so many roles that we get to play. We get to play mom, wife, sister, best friend, boss, and 100 other things in between, that we sometimes get a little bit twisted about who we truly are. So with clarity, which is the first tenet of the blueprint, the C3 blueprint, is that you've got to clearly understand who you are right now in this moment, not who you were 20 years ago, who you are right now. And once you're able to be very clear with that, it allows you to embody a sense of confidence that allows you to stand firm in the face of adversity. So no matter what's happening, because you're clear on who you are, not what someone's telling you should be, but who you are, who you know authentically, your authentic truth, you can now be very confident. So when you hear things, you experience things that are not aligned to who you are, you actually are attuned to that. There's a sense of consciousness. There's an awakening to that. And once you are clear, and now that you have confidence, it allows you to consistently show up in your authentic self. And with that, that kind of alignment is gold. And that is the essence of leadership, is being able to be clear so you can be confident in who you are and how you are and how you want to serve. And you can be consistent on how you show up so that your audio and your video matches, and those who you're called to lead can not only hear the sound of your voice, but they can actually follow the pattern and the flow and the path that you set before them.
Okay. When we come to collaborative leadership, especially in this COVID days, how do you see this is going to impact the community at large?
We learned quite a bit in the COVID innovation cycle, I call it, because it is part of an innovation cycle. We learned that we are interdependent.
Yes.
That in order for us to truly live the life that we dream and that we desire, we need someone else.
Yes.
We need all of us. We all are an individual, beautiful mosaic in this thing called life. And it's the same with leadership, because I have certain strengths and abilities that once added to someone else's strengths and abilities that fills those gaps, which added to that other individual's strengths and abilities. Once we pull that together, we create synergy. And it's with that synergy that we now can create something new. We can actually create something that's greater than our individual parts. And collaborative leadership means that when this time that we've had and people are stuck with, I don't know what to do, now you go, well, then who can I go to?
Okay.
Who can I go to? And so collaborative leadership is something that you're going to have to look at. And when I say collaborative, I don't mean that there's just leaders that's on your same peer level. You're going to have to look for diverse leadership.
Exactly. When we talk about going diverse, can you focus on the sectors which you're planning to intervene in terms of this leadership movement and collaborative leadership coming into the picture? What sectors you're planning to intervene?
Pretty much, it's when I think about what the platform is and the global impact that the brand has in my outreach is really about not only just women empowerment, which is at the core of that, but women's financial literacy, women owning their space in the leadership roles and taking the helm, and women daring to dream bigger and to step outside of what their norm may have been, or what, again, they may have seen, or what they've been limited to experience in their life. And so when we talk about women in leadership,
Yes,
they have to make a shift. They have to step outside of that. It's not a time to pivot. If I may, I want to share with you like just kind of a quick metaphor. When we talk about pivoting and shifting, and I'll bring in basketball. I'm a sports mom, so I love sports. And that when you think about the purpose of a pivot, even when you get to the little nugget of a pivot, it's to hold something in place. And when you're pivoting on the basketball court, you're running a play, you anchor your leg, whether it's your right or left, whichever one's dominant, and you look around to see who you're going to pass it to. You're
yes,
looking around, waiting for somebody to get open. And before you take your shot, you're waiting for someone else to get open. But there's a part of you when you're in that pivot that, depending on what the clock is or how high the stakes are, is that you might be frozen in that space, not necessarily willing to take your shot because you might miss. And so when the buzzer goes off and you didn't pass it or it got stolen, you can always say, I couldn't pass it. I was pivoting and no one was open. They didn't run the play. But there's something very powerful in the shift, which is why I focus on the shift, is that with the shift, you have to make a step and you take your shot. And when you take that shot, you have to own the shot. Whether you make it or whether you don't, you actually have to own it. And so seeing women in leadership, not pivoting, looking to see who's going to open the door, who's going to permit me to have a seat at the table, who's going to allow me to use my voice. It's you owning your voice, you making a shift, you step into your power, and you make and take your shot. And if it doesn't go inside the first time, well, you do it again. If it doesn't do it the next time, then you do it again. And you keep taking those shots because you keep shifting in that. And so the very first part of what I call the shift factor is that self-awareness of knowing where you are in place, You have to do that before you move around. And the H is about the humility. And you talked about collaborative leadership. And again, the core essence of what I focus on is that being humble is expansive. It doesn't mean you're shrinking. It means you're expanding. It means that you're now looking outside of yourself to support yourself to get to that particular goal, to actually make that happen. And if that's not collaboration, then I don't know what is. But first, you have to humble yourself to realize that it's okay for you not to have all the answers, but to know that you are equipped with either the people or the resources or the adjacency to get to the answer. And that's where I spend the focal point, is really building a platform. The leadership movement is more than a movement, it is a mindset. Because your mindset can make you miserable, or it can make you money, it can make you happy, it can make you feel like Superman, or it can make you feel like a squished ant. You get to choose.
Okay. With this current things happening all around the world, what do you think are the immediate areas where we have to focus to have more peace all around the world? What are the areas do you think immediately, if you focus, the key areas? Of course, there are multiple areas, but just key areas would do.
The key area, you got to start with education. As a former K-12 educator and school principal and administrator, you've got to start with education. And that ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is deadly. When you truly don't have an awareness and a knowledge base, and when we look at our educational constructs on what's being taught in the schools, how it's being taught, are we teaching our youth, again, who later become adults, to really begin to think outside the box, to be solutions-based? Or are we trying to indoctrinate them into certain mindsets? So really teaching them to see infinite possibilities, and by giving them context and challenging problems to be part of the solution to solve. And I think that we really need to start with our educational institutions globally. In every single country, you can take a look at some of the educational practices, and I guarantee you'll find an opportunity for growth there. Why? Because that's the very foundation. It's those youth, those children, who are learning the basic foundations of how to learn, how to solve problems, how to connect, how to begin to build bridges. You start at a very early age. Racism is learned, it's taught. Okay, bigotry, all of those things, financial literacy, you name anything. Look at ourselves, in our educational experience. We had to be taught certain constructs. So why we need to start with education? I think from there, you can expand into the other areas, because now with education, it leads you to be able to put something together so you can talk about healthcare. You can talk about beginning looking at public health policies and who has access to that. We can talk about economic stability and begin to eradicate homelessness. And and food instability and all of those other areas. But it starts with educating ourselves about what the possibilities are and how to attain whatever it is that we need to add to our toolkit to get to the outcome in which we seek.
Okay, thank you. What makes a person truly a globally responsible citizen? Because now with no borders, especially with this, thanks to COVID, in a lighter sense, like it has united all of us from different countries to come together for a single cause. I wouldn't have thought of talking with Dr. Deena, say 5 months before. Even though I had idea of connecting with people, my vision was only like my state or my country. I didn't think of outside India. But when this COVID happened, even though I had to shelf that idea, since it's COVID and there's no movement and lockdown and all those things were happening here, but it also gave me another thought, why not we connect online? And then now there's no boundary. Suddenly I see all the boundaries have dissolved, and all the people with the like-minded approach are coming together, and it's bright, but this is the beginning. So how do you see a person, or how do you define a person? I'll rephrase my question. How would you how do you see a person who's globally responsible? What makes that person globally responsible?
Let's see. Everything that I speak to will always start with self. So, and that just shouldn't be surprising if you've been listening now for a while. So to be globally responsible, you first have to have self-awareness.
Okay.
What is your value add? What is your gift? What is that special secret sauce that you have to be able to add? I think about our unique value adds like a big pot of gumbo or, a great soup. We
Okay.
all can put in our own special flavor, our own special value add. And when we put it in, it makes a wonderful, savory, concoction. Or if we put something in and it's spoiled and it's bad, it can spoil the whole pot.
Yes.
When I think about how to become a global citizen, you first have to really actually look at who you are, what your gifts are, and then you tap in and you align yourself in the area of your giftedness and the area of your passion and your area of your knowledge. And if there's something about that space you don't know, then again, you educate yourself actually on that particular area. But being a global citizen first becomes being a citizen that's clear, a citizen that's really can own like their space, that's really intentional about what they do. And now you know how to use your voice. And I wanted to preface my response with that because with COVID and with the social justice, and when you see racial unrest around the world and you see the different movements that's out there, you see people speaking out, and yet they don't have context for their conversation. They don't have context to be able to actually, what I would say, speak to whatever it is or at the value that they want. And so what you hear is a lot of noise. So being a global citizen means you have to educate yourself, but you have to be clear about what you want to speak on, and everything might not speak to you, and that's okay.
Now, when it comes to the leadership movement, what are the areas you are conducting, say, workshops, or are there any courses which you are conducting in order to create awareness and then forming a community? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I'm so glad that you asked. Right now, with and this stems out of I call it my COVID creativity moment. It
Okay.
allowed me to kind of sit down and become clear about who I am
Hmm.
and where I'm growing to. And I've always said that my goal is to have global impact. Like when this clears, I want to speak on stages in India. So all you will have to invite me to come and speak to women in India and around the world. But I had a conference. It was a live conference that was scheduled for October. And like you said, how we have to shift and decide what are we going to do next. And of course, all in-person types of events were canceled. My schedule was adjusted. I took on some new adjustments, but it made me sit into what I wanted to do. And so what my focal point, my intentionality, and what I'm laser focused on is being the foremost authority on imposter syndrome
Okay.
and Black women and other minority ethnic groups. Really helping women begin to deal with that inner critic, that inner bully that stifles their ability to dream. And so, with that, as a futurist, and a
Yes.
futurist, we plan, we see, we project, we look at all the things that are coming together, and then we say, what do we have to do now to get to this particular future? And I decided that women as a whole, the many women that many women that I was working with, many executive women I was working with, they don't have a plan for their own passionate future. And so I birthed forth Future Cast. So Future Cast is a virtual summit, and there's over 30 talks with 26 actually amazing women and 2 young women who are going to share how they dare to dream. And Futurecast, and the theme of Futurecast is called Dare to Dream. People, we're not dreamers anymore. We're not dreaming anymore. And when I say dream, I mean dream big. If you can accomplish whatever it is you dream about by yourself, then you are dreaming too small. And that goes back to the collaborative leadership that you mentioned in the earlier segment. And so Dare to Dream is about helping women dream bigger, dream bolder, but more importantly, to put strategic action plans in place. We often know how, we actually know what we want to do, or we kind of hide it and bury it in our soul of what we want to do, but the how to do it and having, someone to help push us and help us birth it, is where we're actually stuck. And so Futurecast was born from that. That is my big, bold dream. And one of the very first things I did when it downloaded to me was that I start reaching out to my network and I said, I am working on something bigger than me. I need your help. I don't have all the answers right now. I know what I want to do. I want to provide an opportunity and a platform for women to begin to not only live their dreams, but to help other women live their dreams. And so what are the things that you're doing? Because you are doing things and you're living you're living your dream. You're present in your right now. How can we help other women? And so I've had some amazing women step up and say, I would love to support you and let's put this together. And so Futurecast, which is going live August 1st, registration is open right now, is not only for the individual woman who's, in a leadership position, but the other young women who have not dared to dream. And I see this as being your spiritual midwife to helping whatever it is you've been dreaming about, whatever it is that you've wanted to do, what you've been holding deep inside of you, to bring a sense of community of other women who believe in you and who support you and who's actually going to give you the toolkits to do that. So Futurecast is going live, and following that, you will have the opportunity to partake in one of my very first offerings based on what the demands were, is called the 90-Day Shift Academy. So it's 90 days to take you from idea to implementation. So whatever that dream is, whatever that idea is that you have, over 90 days, myself and my team will help you bring that to fruition so that you can actually own it. And so I'm really excited about that. This is one of the very first summits for the Leadership Movement platform. I've done these for other people. I've done these for clients, but this is my big, bold dream. And I had to lead by example. And I said, okay, let's do this. And I'm in that with you. So I'm so excited about Futurecast.
Thank you for sharing that. Any collaboration from India, I'm here. So
yay! Well, one of your prior guests, being Lee, she's actually one of the top speakers, and she's really powerful. And we're talking about how to plant the seeds and grow the seeds to make your dreams actually happen. And so that not only for yourself, but to have global impact, because everything that we do, everything that I do, and the people and clients I work with, about how do we add value to our global.
Correct.
But we first had to get ourselves together.
Okay. And then you go. Yeah.
And then,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I like the way you frame it. Like, start from inside and then go outside. And when you go outside, go global. So
yes.
It's really good. It's really good. Now, when it comes to women empowerment part, okay, it's a widely used word.
Right.
But what is women empowerment to you? What is women empowerment to Dr. Deena?
Woman empowerment for me is just, again, like I said, being clear about who I am. And that level of consciousness empowers me to be able to believe and see the beauty in others. And that I don't compete. I collaborate, I support, and I do so from an authentic space, because what's for me is for me. And I can be so excited about what's for you is for you. And that for women, there's been a part of their tape, there's been a part of their experience that when we think about opportunities inside of the room, that we have to compete against each other. And women's empowerment is really about shining a light that we don't have to compete. There's more than one space at the table. There's more than one opportunity. And if there's not in that room, then let's go build another house. Let's go build another room. Let's go build another table. And that we are empowered to be in control of our own narrative. We have the power to script our narrative. And when we feel empowered ourselves authentically, now we can actually look outside of ourselves and lean and stretch out our hand to reach and support our other sisters around the world, around the globe, to say, you can do it, you can believe in yourself. And so for me, it's not only just believing that you can do it, but thinking it first, thinking about infinite possibilities. You truly can't have it all, but you have to define your all. And it shouldn't be compared to somebody else's version of all. And so having that kind of understanding is what I think true women's empowerment is. to be and feel empowered by owning my own space. And because I'm now charged up, that others can tap into that electrifying energy to be able to power themselves up as needed. But I'm actually serving from my overflow and not from a space of lack, but from pure abundance.
Thank you. Now let's focus on the younger generation.
Yes.
What would be your areas of, I wouldn't say advice, but like, sharing your knowledge, your experience? What areas would you suggest them to focus in order to create impact by joining people who are trying to or attempting already to give that impact? What are the areas the youth has to focus now?
Leadership. Really developing and having a clear understanding of what leadership is. And leadership is also about sacrifice. Leadership is about building trust. Leadership is about developing collective efficacy. It's about, again, knowing what it means to be a leader. Doesn't mean to be the loudest person. It means to be the one that can instill a sense of reverence in those that they're charged to lead, to follow them, whether they're leading from the front or they're leading from the back. Leaders build other leaders. Leaders empower others. Leaders are able to take a helicopter view of the situation and realize, let me plug in the right person in the right spot, and let me empower those on my team. And I think our youth today, having to develop what I call leadership skills. And one of that is, we talk a lot about empathy, being able to step outside of ourselves and be able to see what others may be experiencing, be able to empathize with them. And by empathize, I don't mean that you then need to take a position where you now begin to, I guess the best way to say that is you can enable people. And a leader doesn't enable, they empower. And that's probably the most powerful thing that you can do as a leader, is to empower, others. And you don't have to be the person that's in the front. And I think our teens and our youth now, you're seeing an unprecedented opportunity for them to step into leadership roles and leadership spaces and to use their voice. And the only thing is that I would challenge them to use their voice strategically and to, instead of react, to learn to respond. Okay. And when they respond, that's where their power is. That's where their influence is. Because my grandpa used to say, once, words and actions are like toothpaste. Once it's out of the tube, you can't put it back. Right. And so I challenge not only youth, but I challenge everyone to sit in a moment and be clear about their thoughts before they use their mouth and they speak, and think about when they are stepping out to share their perspective, that they do it from a place of knowledge and awareness. That you go, I call it the power of 3. Go check 3 additional spaces and places before you share, you tarnish, or you make a statement, especially if it's a statement that's not familiar. If you're sharing your personal experience, fine, but make sure that you're sharing it and you're explaining how you frame it to others, that this is based on your personal experience, that it might not necessarily be factual, but it is based on your personal truth. Because sometimes your truth could be a lie.
Very well put. Very well put. As a futurist, how do you imagine the post-pandemic world? How do you see it?
Oh my gosh, I see it beautiful. Here's what I want people to process. This is not new. Innovation is not new. Disruption is not new, okay? The reason why it's different, now, is because it seems like so many things are changing around us, and technological advances have made it more visible for what we see. So I see an amazing space where our borders have shifted. Like you said, we're able to have a conversation. We're able to impact and connect with each other.
Yes.
In real time.
Yes.
Where before we would have been framed, we would have been thinking we had to be in the same space. We would have been thinking we had to be in person to be able to utilize our voice and amplify our message. But now we realize that we don't have another option. So what we did was we saw new opportunities. And I will say this, the future doesn't belong to those people who are flexible. And the future doesn't belong to change makers. The future belongs to the creative. What are you going to be able to create in this new sense? And so I believe that you see a rise of creators who are creating and cultivating something new and bigger. And so I don't know exactly what that beholds, but I know that I'm excited to see what it is and that I'm creating my own personal value add to lend my voice to the story.
Okay. When we look at the landscape of growth, uh, how do you see the major forces? If you could name few, these forces are shaping the global economy. Because why I'm asking this question, there are a lot of theories which came in the initial period, and then they were modified again, they were altered again as the days came, as the days rolled over. At least as of now, how do you see the major forces that are going to be shaping the economy?
Well, digital transformation, I mean, digital transformation has been going on for a while, but we experience the sense of urgency of digital transformation in real time. And so when you think about, the forces, I'm not quite sure what particularly that you mean by that, but I can say that when we talk about, they're already talking about our use of how we use currency and how we value time, energy, efforts. The future of work changes. I think now that it'll be something such as I can actually take on a job. In America, could take on a job in India or London or Australia. Now we know virtually, virtual assistants, virtual work. There's been virtual call centers, virtual hubs in India, the Philippines, Mexico. I mean, all globally. Other countries, to be honest with you, have been practitioners of the future of work, especially in the digital space. The United States, I think, was a little bit behind the power curve about how we work, how we value work, how we reach out and connect with people. And so I spent 16 years living overseas in South Korea and in Germany.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I have a different framework. That's why Yes. So, and I just moved back to the United States in 2016.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Mind you, in some aspects, it was like stepping back into a time machine. Like, wait, why are you doing it this way when these other, environments have
way forward?
Yeah, I remember in 2000 when I first moved to Korea. And as far as doing video calling from your watch, they were doing it in Japan and Korea 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So when we're talking about these different experiences and technological advances and these different ways of working, these different ways of, doing things, I believe that some areas, COVID allows some areas to begin to catch up.
Okay.
So that's where I think we're, some of the differences might not necessarily answer like your particular question, but in all honesty, I believe that COVID has allowed some areas to slow down, the world to slow down, to catch up. Because when we talk about inequities, that are there, you can't keep adding the same amount to both sides and think it's going to get equal if they start out in balance. If you keep giving me 5, 5, 5, I'm still going to keep doing this. But somehow I then have to cause some sense of disclosure if I want to begin to build a sense of equity across the board. And to be honest with you, there will never be total equity. It's like juggling. The balls will never all touch your hands at the same time or you're not juggling. There's always going to be a gap or a space that's in there. And so I think that when we look at the future, a post-COVID world, which is what we're in, is that you're going to see that companies that were so resistant to move forward realize that it's very advantageous and that they will not be around unless they move. They will be another Blockbuster Video compared to Netflix. I mean, they'll be another taxi to Uber. We've been Uberizing for years. Look at the airports, and this particular part, and just to put things in perspective, because we're talking about global impact, is that when I've traveled around the world extensively and a lot, and I couldn't imagine 10 years ago to have a shared ride lot for Uber. You have now airports who are renovating, they have to build in their Uber, their Lyft spaces, and all the others for drop off. They now have to take that into consideration, and they're changing the way, they're transforming the way the flow of traffic moves at airports, or who has access to that. Atlanta Airport is growing. I lived there for a while, and I went there and I'm like, oh my goodness, everything's changing globally. Can you think back 10 years ago? Did you have an Uber lot?
Well, I used to stay in Lenox in Georgia, and so you're saying Hartsfield Airport has been renovated completely now, and that's one of the busiest airports, right, after Chicago?
Yes, and it's growing. It's getting bigger. And so the last time I was just there before everything kind of broke out, I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, you now have to walk across, and now there's signage. So not just the fact that you have that, there's signage in the airport directing you to where to go. And so now there's signs to say, if you're doing a shared ride, Uber, Lyft, whatever, then here's where you go. There's a section of the terminal that's where you go to go get your ride.
Okay. 2020. Okay.
We've been in process of this, is what I'm saying. This is something that is continual. But the fact that we added a medical health pandemic on top of it, which caused now the rest of the world to even slow down and have to see our interdependence and our need for collective advocacy to eradicate this. And I think that that's what's going to lead to exponential growth as we move forward.
Okay.
So,
thank you. Now we move on to the third segment, the surprise segment.
Okay.
Okay. You have your favorite dinner with your family, you're listening to your favorite music, then you go to sleep, you wake up, you have become the governor of California. So now
all this chocolate magic.
And now you have to focus on 3 sectors.
Okay.
Minimum 3 sectors.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your office. Now you want to sign 3 documents which is going to create a long-term impact. And what 3 sectors would you focus and why?
My 3 sectors would be education,
Wow. Okay.
be healthcare, and economic stability.
Okay.
And as I alluded to a little bit earlier, when we talk about education, I don't just mean about funding, because that's a big part of it. What we saw in recent events is that, and again, I was a teacher. Okay, so I'm still an educator, at heart. Once you're an educator, you're always an educator. We do not pay our educators globally enough.
Okay.
And their value. And many parents begin to see that when they had to homeschool their own kids. and yet it's not just about pay, but it's also about respect. It is a professional, okay? A professional position, but yet often it's not treated as such. And so when we talk about those who work in the fields of education, that's one part of it. And then there's the other portion of it when we talk about what is taught in schools. What kinds of curriculum? What kinds of programs? How come we don't have a mandatory financial literacy program?
Right. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, mandatory. Not, if you do it, if you had a partnership. Mandatory financial literacy. Mandatory, actually, I love problem-based learning. So are we trying to indoctrinate people with things to look for as the past, or we're trying to help them be creators to come up with solutions for the future? So beginning to implement and teach differently, action-based. inquiry based, to say, this is the situation, this is an opportunity. How can we do this and solve the problem for this? How can we look at resources? How can we step outside? So you talk about having a truly global classroom. Technology allows us to have that.
Very true, very true. Now it's possible, much more than ever.
Much more than ever. So why are we stuck with textbooks? So one of the very first things I would do is to throw out the idea of a textbook. Bye, gone. Why? Because history changing, life changing, opportunity changing. And so now we have so many digital platforms and opportunities to do that. And so we can have real-time documents. Let's look at authentic sources for information that are timely, because by the time that the textbook went into publication, it's outdated.
Very true, very true. Especially now, what you're talking is much relevant to the current situation. Yes.
You know, and so, and what I'm saying, when I say by textbook, I'm talking about the hardbacks books, but having a textbook or a resource, not even a textbook, but a resource that is updated, lack of a better term, and this is not necessarily a plug for Wikipedia, but kind of taking a Wikipedia approach to adding knowledge and more information as it's learned. So then we're not so tied to when we need to make a shift of, oh, that was wrong, we got it wrong. Oh, we can go back to adjust that this is not it. We can go back and realize that we didn't cite the source properly. We can go back and make sure, oh, we left out a whole group of people. Oh, well, guess what? We can put it in there and it didn't cost you a gazillion billion dollars, or you weren't holding on for financial reasons to say, we can't get rid of these textbooks. We spent too much money on it. So you're going to pass on. I told you, ignorance is deadly, not bliss. So you're going to keep. And I've been parts of textbook adoptions. I mean, I'm not speaking from a place that I don't know. I've been a part where we spent months and months of analyzing and going over to adopt a textbook from one of your big publishing companies, to then take another year or 2 years before we could get it into our schools, and a year or 2 years before we can help our teachers train on these new whatever in there. Okay, how outdated is that? So what we offering our youth, our children, is outdated information, and not necessarily the most up-to-date. And then, frankly, history is taught from different perspectives. That's why it's his story or her story. So what if we had opportunities where we can look at a triangulation or the intersectionality? I would love, and maybe I might do that, write a book called The Intersectionality of History. And so education is one, as you can see, I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about, because once again, education holds power. It holds a lot of power.
Now we come to it's very well explained, and I think this is a strong message. Okay, and now the second question is, you're given a magical wand with which you can, with one swish, you change one thing globally.
I'm gonna have my wand.
Magical.
I'm gonna have my wand.
So one swish, change one thing globally. What would that be?
It would be racism, and I'm talking about institutionalized racism. Period. And the fact that when people realize that race is a social construct, it's not a thing. And you maybe be able to speak to that, because when you think about, being in India, depends on what villages and where you come from. That's usually the descriptor, not, this is what our cultural connection is, not necessarily what I look like on the outside. Yes. And so if I could eradicate that and people could just see people as people who might live in this particular region. And so because they live in that region, they might have a special value add. I am not saying I don't want people to see color and see difference. I'm saying embrace differences. I'm saying that that's part of our collective, is that you're bringing something unique. And so I want you to, but yet there's not a sense of judgment or a feeling of superiority or inferiority because of what your skin, how dark a hue you might be. And I think racism impacts us globally, and it's a power construct. You can't talk about race without talking about power. And so
Yes.
when you have that power construct, if you eradicate that, you remove that power construct, and now you open the door for infinite possibility for all. And you truly now have a level playing field as much as possible to, again, reach for your dreams, dare to dream bigger, go after, that without already having a couple of things stacked against you, a couple of bricks, that are thrown at you. And so my magic wand, be gone. Racism.
Thank you. I like the energy. I like the energy, Dr. Deena. Now we move on to the next segment, which is gratitude slot.
Yeah.
This segment, you go ahead and thank all the people, or at least the key people, because all the people might be a very big list, but key people who you could mention their names now. Basically, you owe your success to these people. They have been with you, they have guided you, educated you, mentored you, or at least been with you, sat next to you when you wanted somebody to be with you. This is the time for you to go ahead and pay your gratitude. Please go ahead.
The very first person who actually kind of grounded me, and I have to just say that I have to say my mom, Ruby Louise. Was brilliant, is brilliant, and she gave me lots of Ruby Louiseisms. I can't say I appreciated them as I was growing up, but oh my goodness, the things I've been able to live into in my right now. So I would have to say that. I would say I have 8 brothers and sisters. And so I would have to say my entire family, because the way that we were brought up is that we were taught to lean in and lean on each other first before looking outside of that. And it was not that we've always gotten along and things have always been so super sweet, but at the most challenging times when I needed someone to say, you can do this. And yes, you are, an example. Yes, you do have value. They have been there. My sister Valeria, my sister Aretha. And when I think about who I owe my success to,
Yes.
in all honesty, and this is not about ego, I have to say it's me. Life wasn't very easy. My journey wasn't very easy. I had more roadblocks
Okay.
than I had pathways built. And
Wow.
so people taught me lessons that encouraged me to elevate to a higher version of myself, as opposed to said, hey, let me teach you. But I can say, being a member of the John Maxwell team and my mentor, John Maxwell, and the way that he leads and the way that he shares and discusses leadership has been eye-opening. I can say, Paul Martinelli and the Empowered Living community and Roddy Galbraith, who really taught us about mindset mastery and owning our I am story, has helped me to be the powerhouse I am today, with clarity, with confidence, and consistency. And when I think about truly who I am as a leader, there is one person that has shaped everything I am as a leader, and that's my son, Xavier. Everything I learned about leadership, I learned by being Xavier's mom. My mistakes, my challenges, my growth, because it was in being his mom that challenged me to go bigger, to stay in the game, to not give up. When I thought that I couldn't do it anymore, all I had to do was look at that. I owe that to him, and that he's challenged me because I set the example. Our kids see who we are and what we do, and they model their behavior after that. And so that gave me a higher calling, a higher reason, a bigger why. And so if I have to say, the secret to my success today was in being Xavier's mom, which has empowered me to lead in a global way and to be able to step into a space to share with other women, to found the Leadership movement, to shift the way we think, because I had to start with me because Xavier needed me.
Thank you. Thank you. I requested 60 minutes of your time to talk on collaborative leadership. We touched collaborative leadership and much more. As you rightly said, the powerhouse, not just the 3 C's, but much more than that. And definitely 60 minutes, what I was mentioning to Bianli, and I'm saying the same thing to you, like 60 minutes is definitely not enough. There's much more, maybe a longer, but in pods of sessions would definitely, I'll discuss with you after this, because this will definitely energize people who are watching, the viewers who are listening to this. And definitely this will create a spark. This will trigger that spark for them to go and achieve what they want to achieve. Irrespective of come what may, attitude will be developed. And I can confidently say that listening to you for the past 60 minutes. Thank you so much for that. Any closing remarks from you, Dr. Deena?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your platform. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your outreach. Thank you for you doing what you're called to do. And that is to join and unite voices for inspiration and for empowerment and for transformation from around the globe. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you're thinking and you thought of me to allow me to hold space with you. And so that's probably like the biggest thing, is that I said to myself that in this new season is that my impact, my vision is about being a global influencer. And I put that in the universe and I said, okay, this is the universal truth. I'm a global influencer and I want to touch the lives of particularly women around the world to see more than what they've been seeing, to know that they have infinite possibilities and that they have a choice, and that 50% of knowing who they are is knowing who they're not. So get very clear so they can be confident and they can show up consistently in their authentic I am story.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Deena.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Deena from California. Truly a powerhouse, and definitely 60 minutes is not enough. After this session, definitely I'll be communicating with her, and hopefully based on all the other schedules, we will definitely request her to be with us at least once in a week for 20 minutes to share her knowledge and to create the impact what she's creating. Thank you.